order. One little special thing I just wanted to say is we lost a very special member of our community. 102-year-old Doug DeWolf passed away last week, and people may know his daughter Alice DeWolf.
Yeah.
Alice has spent a lot of time on committees and watershed issues and those sorts of things. Anyways, Doug lived with Alice and Corey and passed away quietly last week after a stroke. Yeah, I just wanted to remember Doug, and you know, the 102 is a good life. That's fantastic.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And one thing that's not on the agenda that I will say that questions from the public will be taken at the end of the meeting. So let's just move in. And so let's start with the first agenda item of approval of the agenda, addition of any late items.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add a discussion about a potential late item, potential canceling, or my recommendation is to cancel the COW meeting, which is scheduled for next week. Of course, we're 1 week behind because of the change in the schedule as a result of the tour. And I can explain my reasons for that.
When should we take care of that? Under new business, I guess?
Under new business, yeah.
Okay. If I skip past it, please remind me. Any other thoughts? Okay, can I have a motion to adopt or approve the agenda as presented with that one late item?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
And all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, adoption of minutes from the January 21st, 2021 regular board meeting, which are attached to the package. Any changes, adds, changes, deletes?
No, looks good.
Okay, motion to approve or adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Third item is ratification of motions from the February 4th Committee of the Whole meeting. So these are the discussion items from the Committee of the Whole that have resulted in motions of the board. And those are the minutes from that meeting, draft minutes anyways, are attached. And in those you will see a couple of bolded motions that we need to ratify. So motion, the first of those is that the spreadsheet prepared by the interim administrator summarizing the principal outcomes from the January 26, 2021 strategic planning / priority setting session be received, approved, and adopted. So that motion is on the floor. Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion or debate of this item? Okay, all in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay. The second item from the meeting is about the water leak policy, and the motion is that no change in direction be taken with respect to the position adopted by the board in the fall of 2020 related to this matter, and staff be requested to post on the website appropriate information and an advisory related to the district's meter reading timing and invoicing practices, the need for ratepayers to periodically check their water meters and exercise due diligence in regards to possible leaks on their private property, and recommended actions to be taken in the event of such occurrences. So motion is on the floor. Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, any discussion, any further discussion of this item?
No.
And so this is really then over to the administration to prepare something to be posted on the website. Okay, so all in favor? Say
Yep.
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that one is now complete. Item on our agenda. So next item, item 5, reports. So let's turn this over to our interim administrator, Gary Nason, for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to read the report. I'm assuming you folks have all read it. I can provide just a couple of very brief updates. It's primarily about the conversion process and the strat planning items. And I wrote this report on Friday of last week after the tour that we had on Thursday. And subsequent to that, of course, we scanned it, put the packages together on Monday, but there's been a few meetings and a few developments with respect to a couple of these items. So I'll briefly summarize the updates, any new information that isn't in my report. On the southern, and I'll go through the report, and then if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Update on the Southern Railway of Vancouver Island outstanding invoices. Yes, Tuesday, I did receive some updated legal advice from the solicitor in regards to this matter. There's one further little piece of checking that he needs to do in terms of what has changed since 2000 and I believe it was 12 when the Union Bay Improvement District did get some advice on these invoices. He's got to do that checking. And what I would like to do is present that advice. It would have to be initially in camera at the next board meeting in March. I didn't want to spring it as a late item and schedule an in-camera meeting that hadn't been put out there on the website. So I do have that legal advice. And we will have a recommendation in regards to an appropriate course of action to take. And we'll have that on the March 18th agenda. On the updates on the conversion process. So every meeting now, I'm going to present you with a little report like this, which basically hits the high points of where we're at with the conversion process in each of the key functional areas, as well as a brief update on the strategic priorities that you've endorsed through the Committee of the Whole process. Basically, just a few little updates on a couple of things that have happened in the last 3 days since this report was prepared. I'm talking about conversion now, and I'm on page 2 of my report. Under the human resources component, only new piece of information is that the next meeting of the human resources, this is the CVRD, UBID, senior staff, CUPE committee. They meet every 2 weeks, and the next meeting is on March 4th. And we are also going to be very shortly sending out some communications to UBID staff in regards to where we're at with the process. There's lots of things that have to happen between now and conversion, but we're going to be sending out an email, hopefully today, certainly before the end of the week, to the UBID staff. On communications, heads up, there is a second brief one-page conversion newsletter that has been prepared. I've seen it in a first draft form. I had a couple of comments, sent it back to CVRD. They're going to tweak it, and they hope to get it back to me before the end of this week, and I'll send it out to those of you on the conversion working group. And the objective is to include that newsletter in the March utility billing cycle. And that'll be the second week of March. And I've asked the chair to provide his chair's update, which would basically be on the first page of the insert. The second page would be the newsletter. Under legislative services, big task coming up in terms of documents. We have we have about 35 to 40 boxes of documents, I think, between the Public Works office, Dan's office, the water treatment plant, and the admin office. CVRD has been talking to us about digitizing those documents, disposing of those documents which are clearly beyond the recognized retention period, and which documents to retain. So we're talking about a process of starting that in early April. And I think what we're talking about now is the CVRD, because there's really inadequate space to really do that job in UBID. What we're talking about now, and I'll have further information at the next board meeting, is those documents being taken to one of the CVRD secure facilities, where we would go through, with a lot of help from the CVRD, those boxes, destroy those boxes, which those materials which are clearly permissible for destruction, most typically financial records over 7 and 8 years old. So that's a big process. I'll have an update for you once we finalize plans on that at the March 18th meeting. And there may be, I'll certainly advise the board what the plan is. I may require legally some sort of a motion or directive from the board to approve the disposal of those documents, which legally, it is permissible to destroy. On the water section of conversion, we're very much working on the washroom office building at the water treatment plant. I've had some discussions with school district number 71 about what we heard were some portable buildings, which potentially the school district was looking to sell and dispose of. They're on Hornby Island. I had a talk with the director of facilities there today. It doesn't look like it's going to be in the cards and be possible. So I did, though, get a number of contacts and leads in regards to potential suppliers. So I've linked in with CVRD procurement, their purchasing people, for some advice and assistance in terms of an appropriate next step. I know that we did 3 quotes in the fall of last year. That process didn't materialize with very good results in terms of what came back. So I hope to have a further update and information to the board in March once I've had a discussion with CVRD, the procurement people. I need some procurement advice and assistance. And the CVRD has very much said to me that this is an issue that they would like us or prefer us to basically clear up, deal with before conversion. Under finance, just a brief update. I've had a discussion with Kevin Duville about some of the finance issues, particularly the development of a 5-year capital plan. And I'm having some discussions with Coors about some work, and I'll just talk about that in the next section under strategic priorities. Updates on the strategic priority special projects, the B parcel project. Janice just today emailed me a spreadsheet which she's compiled through some of the iCity VADM records. We now have, and Janice, feel free to jump in on this in your report. We have at least a list of those B parcels, which is a good starting point to identify where they are and which are capable of connection. So we have pulled together that initial starting report. I have asked Lindsay to potentially work a few extra days if necessary outside of her usual 3 days a week to give us some assistance to move this project along. And now it's going to be an exercise of working with Dan to identify those, go physically, I guess, on the site, identify the location of those B parcels, which are capable of being connected, and then the policy work and the enforcement work is the easy part. It's the dog work of kind of going through all of those. And I believe, stand to be corrected, there's 108 parcels we're talking about. Under the subdivision bylaw, I will have a report on March 18th. I would take it initially in camera because I'm going to have a bit of legal advice as part of that report. I've asked Peter Johnson to give us a couple of pieces of legal advice in regards to the status of that bylaw. It's very much been a discussion at the staff level with the ministry and with CVRD. And CVRD, as we speak, their planning department has the bylaw. They're reviewing it. They're comparing it and contrasting it with what they have in place right now in terms of subdivision regulations. And, we're going through the process of, okay, what's the next appropriate course of action? What are the options? What are the necessary steps? But there is a component of some legal advice that I need to obtain. So that definitely will be on the agenda of the March 18th board meeting. And then the final item is development of a 5-year capital plan. I just had a discussion today with Coors Engineering. The short story is that the CVRD is very interested in talking to UBID about jointly engaging Coors Engineering with some of our consulting money, with some of their consulting money, and even using potentially some grant funding, some conversion grant funding to engage Coors to do some engineering analysis, primarily on the capacity and the usage, the water usage based on 7 months of usage now with the plant being operational of the current water plant, what the capacity is and what upgrades may be required to with a view to a couple of those major development applications down the road. That's a benefit to us in terms of 5-year financial planning as well as to the CVRD. So we're going to have a recommendation coming forward. I've asked Coors to provide a little scope of work for a project like that. How long would it take? What would be the cost parameters? But it would be primarily focusing on, at least initially, on the plant and the reservoir, its capacity, and what would be required down the road for those applications that we've been asked to provide comments on. There'd be another component as well about the delivery system, the condition of the current mains, upgrading requirements, future capacity needs, and those types of things. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it at that. Again, this will be kind of regular for me coming forward. Updates on each of the strategic planning items as well as the conversion stuff. So happy to take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one. Regarding the building of the washroom office, you notice I said building. I had assumed that we were going to look at the cost of building. Did I misunderstand that? Because all I've heard so far is sort of the cost of a trailer or a portable. Did I misunderstand?
Nope, not at all. When I was talking to the director of operations with School District 71, of course, they do this all the time, right? And this is why I want to link in with CVRD and get some procurement advice. I did get a number of potential providers, both of modular trailer type, ATCO trailer type facilities, as well as building, coastal installations, for example, in Nanaimo. They do building projects. So no, that's certainly something that I want to talk to the CVRD about. They basically have said, look, essentially, we don't have any easy solutions here. We don't have a rabbit to pull out of the hat. We'd like you folks to to make your best efforts to try to get something underway and, solve this problem, hopefully for the longer term. So, we're going to explore all potential options. And that's why I want to get, before I just go out to 3 providers, and I have the names of 3 providers, primarily local, who I don't believe we reached out to beforehand when we did this last year, but certainly constructing, a building would be something that we would certainly look at as an option. Yeah.
My understanding is that we were preferring buying because of the time involved with the permitting process.
Yeah.
And that buying would be a much more expeditious matter of getting to something permanent, but that didn't preclude us building.
Yep.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. But basically, if we're going to do our due diligence, we want to just take a look at the whole range of options, right?
Makes sense.
And that's, at this stage, what I need is a little bit of advice and pick the brains. And the CVRD has been quite good in terms of, although they haven't given us any solutions, they've said, sure, absolutely, we're happy to help you out, give you advice as necessary in terms of the best options to move forward with. So this is going to be coming back. It's very much, I get it. This is one project that you'd like us to move along. And I thought that the School District 71, because I was tipped off by CVRD that they may have some portables, not only just classrooms, which are bigger, but they had at least one admin portable, which is kind of half size, which would have been perfect. And even this School District 71 said, yeah, it'd probably be perfect for your needs, but a couple of issues. He said that they probably needed them to eventually go to Courtenay because the schools there are over capacity. And he said there may be complexities with selling them because they were funded by the Ministry of Education. And he said, and the earliest you would be able to get your hands on it anyway would be the fall of next year, because this year, sorry, because they're currently being used. So we're exploring all options.
Okay. Something to dovetail on with the 5-year capital plan. And I'm really glad do we need to make a motion on joining the CVRD UBID combination funding to get that engineering analysis? I'm totally in favor of that. And I think that's really critical kind of information towards further decision-making. But on that note, one thing we know for sure is that we need land at a higher elevation. And that was the problem faced by the previous board, where we knew that a water treatment plant was required by Island Health, but there was no land to build it on, which is why they purchased that land, which is at a higher elevation, which has since been sold back. But it's something that the CVRD would not necessarily have that relationship that we have, UBID has, with that forestry company. And they may it was a very reasonable price that, in my mind, that to me is a capital expenditure well worth undertaking. Not that it would be built upon, but it will be within 100 additional homes needing a second DAF plant, and clearly needs to be at a different elevation. So I would like to see, that's kind of something that we've lucked into. It was a reciprocal agreement. They sold it to us, we sold it back to them. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't sell it right back to us for an extraordinarily reasonable price. And I feel that is that is not something the CVRD would even think of, let alone undertake.
Yeah. Well, good point.
A little uncomfortable, Gary, I take your direction here that we're talking about land in public meetings, and I'm not sure that's appropriate.
Well, I won't profess to being I won't profess to being up to speed on some of that past history, but I will say this, is that definitely, and you folks that are on the conversion working group are probably, this will be on the agenda for the next conversion working group meeting to talk about this. The CVRD is definitely in favor of seriously working with UBID to come together on a project to engage Coors Engineering, because I'm assuming that Coors would know some of the background and the history that Susanna, you're talking about. And this would be part of the analysis. So I've asked Coors to, at CVR's request, they asked me to talk to Coors to scope out, put together a scope of work for a project to get into those types of issues that you're talking about. Really analyze the current capacity of the plant with a view to what are the best options and what is needed, down the road. So I'm assuming that Coors may know about some of that, and that would be part of their analysis. But what I expect to come back to you with is something, basically a recommendation that, look, let's engage Coors Engineering, because it's a huge piece of any 5-year financial plan. Let's engage Coors Engineering to do a scope of work. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's the time frame, and here's basically where the source of funding is coming from both parties. Because CVRD has said that a project like that is very much, what I've been advised is that kind of a project is very much eligible for some conversion funding to assist with the conversion process. I tried to get them involved in the B parcels to see whether they might be able to interested in funding, a little bit of assistance on that. But they said that that's not really eligible, but this one is. So I think that that's the good news, but more to follow.
So I think the point that comes from Susanna's comment is that as we look at the future of water capacity, is whether the future of Union Bay can be served from the current plant location, or whether there needs to be and therefore a higher cost of building a second DAF train at a different location, because the current location has been sized for a second DAF train, right? And that infrastructure has already been put in place, right? So that's really the question. It's not about the land in question. It's about, can we service future developments from the current elevation?
Yeah, and that's what I would like the engineers, I believe that would be an engineering type of response.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's, as long as that's, I think that's the feedback area, is make sure that part's covered,
Yeah,
right?
you bet.
And I'd love to also hear your thoughts on whether we need a motion to approve this funding. My sense is it's operational, it's in the budget, as long as we're saying that that's at your discretion.
No motion required, I don't think, Mr. Chair, at this time. I've got a small consulting budget. I'd need to check with Janice, of course, before, accessing any of that, see what we have. Maybe I'll have to come back with a recommendation that we reallocate funding to pay for a portion of this. But again, I've been given a positive indication that the CVRD is going to financially assist in this. But I don't think a motion is required at this time, because I need to get something from Coors about, okay, this is how much this project would cost to do this work.
Fantastic. Eve, do you have comments, questions, thoughts?
What clarifying, just want to make sure I understand this money would be for just to do the analysis, not to do any of the work, just the cost of doing the report that would analyze what our land now has the capacity to serve, whether we built more or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. There's money in the conversion process that we haven't used yet?
I'm not sure. I believe, Chair Monroe, you may know this more than I, but There was some initial conversion money, but then the CVRD has applied for some additional funds to assist with, now that the referendum has passed, to assist with getting to the point of dissolution and conversion. I'm not sure if they've heard back from that yet, but in discussing it with the deputy CAO of the CVRD, he's pretty comfortable in saying that this kind of a project we're talking about now with Coors would very much be something, because it's in both parties' interests. It's in the CVRD's interests as well, that, post-conversion, they're going to be dealing with these applications from Upper Island Developments and Union Bay Estates. So they're going to need answers to some of these questions. So they're very interested in moving forward.
Mhm.
Now, this is a second pot, Eve, that it became available after conversion was passed. It's for the administrative costs of conversion.
Nice. The other thing I had was the water treatment. Oh yeah, the washroom and the office washroom. Did I read in here that they want us to have that solved before conversion? They want that.
That's what came back from James. It's been, I must compliment the CVRD. They've been great to work with. But he did say, I provided him with our strategic priorities list, and I've briefed them all. All of the senior staff have that list, and they know what we're doing. And James just came back and has given me feedback on each of those particular items and which ones they're saying, well, you guys do what you want, but you're not saying you're on your own. The B parcel exercise was one where if you feel you need to address that issue, fine, fill your boots. The other one was on the washroom, and what came back was, and their water people are now getting into the weeds in terms of our water supply and delivery system and orienting themselves and getting to know it. But on the washroom, office, meeting room little thing, that trailer thing, they're saying, we'd prefer that, we've got enough on our plate right now. We'd prefer that you guys figure out a solution and try to deal with it before conversion. That's what they would prefer.
So how are we going to do that? Who's going to do that? Just you and Janet?
Well, I just, as I mentioned, James Warren gave me a tip on School District 71 potential
Right.
surplus. I
Shouldn't
checked that one out.
Shouldn't the board be engaged in doing something rather than just waiting for the one staff member to do all the work? I mean, can we not do something to help out?
Well, that's why I say, yeah, and I've indicated that my next step now is I need to get some procurement advice from the CVRD in terms of, okay.
For instance, I'm sorry, just 1 minute. If they want us to do it, then I think they can give us the building permits and we can build something.
Yeah.
Let's use our leverage, because it'll be the last time we have any, I can assure you.
Well,
So,
yeah, this is what I'm going to be discussing. I mean, at this stage of the game, we've got some work to do at the staff level. This is what I'm going to be discussing with their purchasing agent is, okay, well, you folks have done some of this stuff before. The build from scratch option, which entails permits and all that type of stuff. We have to get a better sense of what the implications are. No question that, to put something modular in place, an ATCO trailer or something like that is a more expeditious way to go. If you're building something from scratch, you've got to go through the building permits and approvals and drawings and all that sort of stuff, right? So we're looking at options in terms of what's our best option to move forward on this.
You and the CVRD, when you say we, who is we?
At this stage, myself and the CVRD staff.
Okay,
What I'm hearing Eve asking, I think, is
I'm not getting.
does this merit a select committee to support you?
I wouldn't say at this time. let me come back with what the options are. Establishing a select committee at this stage, I think it's premature. And what we have to do, I have to get a clearer idea of what the options are moving forward. The best option may be that, okay, we've got a list of providers that we have not sourced before. We do another request for proposals to have some modular, ATCO trailer type building put on the site. And we go through that process again. Alternatively, maybe there's a build from scratch option. But at this stage of the game, I think we need to move forward on this. And I think the best way to approach it is to let me do some field work with the CVRD. I don't want to speak harshly of them. They haven't said go solve it. They basically said that, we would prefer that this issue be put to bed one way or the other as quickly as you can, hopefully before conversion, because they've got other issues with respect to the whole supply and delivery system that they've got to bring themselves up to speed with. So if we need a select committee of the board, I'll certainly come back with that recommendation. But in March, I should be in a position to provide you with, okay, here's the best process moving forward.
I think we've made an assumption about some kind of laborious, difficult permitting process. I don't believe that's the case. This is a straightforward build. It's a washroom and an office. It's nothing to do with a water treatment plant. All of this time, like waiting another month, could be when we it's a simple drawing. It's not a rocket. It doesn't require huge engineering. We already know cost-wise, it will be probably cheaper. So I guess I guess I don't understand why that tender process, that drawing one, that process isn't undertaken now and just do it.
We sourced out ATCOs. There's none out there.
I'm not talking ATCOs.
No, I know. I'm just talking about rather than trying to source ATCOs, we already did that. So
why are we not building? We've got the land.
So let's bring this back and let's let the administrator do his job. And he has said he is going to look at all options, including building. I believe a tender process is required for this kind of expenditure. We shouldn't just single source it. It should be formally done. And if that tender process includes both buy and build, then fantastic, right? But I think we have to let Gary do his job here first. I think you've provided your input, which says you believe a build is an effective means of.
Well, not to delay because we assume some kind of onerous permitting process. It's a very straightforward.
No, I don't think there's any delay going on here.
Okay.
I don't think there's any delay. Gary's doing his job.
Yep. No, I get it. We'll certainly be coming back and we will look at the building option, but keep in mind for that, you've got to engage an architect to have a design done. And on the surface, that usually is a far more time consuming, potentially more expensive and complicated exercise. If you're going to be, because there are more rigorous permitting and approval requirements. But that's certainly something we'll be talking to the CVRD about because they would have to get involved in that.
I'd like to suggest we move on from this one. I think that we've been well updated and that you've heard feedback from the board. And so let's wait until next month, the next meeting, and we will hopefully have a recommendation as to how to proceed then.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've flushed this one out pretty well.
Yep, no problem. That's it, Mr. Chairman, for my report.
Eve, any more on your point of view?
No, I don't think it would be welcome, so I will not say anything.
But yeah, it's all, well, I'm not trying to shut anything down here. If there's, no,
Okay.
I'm not really, like, I
guess
feel
I
like
see it
Gary's got our
different. I guess
input.
I see it differently. I think the board should be engaged in actually doing things more than just waiting passively. I think we could help move this process along by whether it needs a committee or not, just whatever. That's my comment. I'm fine if that's
Yeah.
not how this board operates. But it seems to me like if we wait till March, we have till July to get this done. Is that when conversion is happening?
June 30th.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure the building has to be in place, but the process has to be committed.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah,
That's
no,
my comment.
Eve, that's a different discussion, right? To say, what is the role of the board in terms of work items? And certainly, a part of the way this is coming together is my personal opinion on that, but I don't want to be the only one that says that, right? Like I've always used a separation of governance from operations, and that the board's role is governance and that the staff's role is operations. And that the crossover point between those is committees. Now, I understand also that in the past, boards have worked much more actively, that they've been a part of the research process, the digging, all those sorts of things, right? So a bunch of what you're raising is probably a bit me and just the way I see things. And if it needs to be debated, I'd be happy to do that. Just to have input from others is to say, how do they see our role as a board, right, in these types of operational issues? So do we want to talk about that? Do we want to put that on the next cycle? What do we want to do? Like, I don't want to be the one that just says, this is the way we do things, right? But certainly my assumptions have been guiding that. I know you're saying, I'd like to be involved. I'd like to help.
I think we could actually help. We could do some work, on this. I just, if that's not the way it's been, I don't really see that that's the most efficient way to do it either. Waiting for the overworked one administrator to do it all is just doesn't seem smart. And how do I know he's explored all possibilities if you don't work together and do all the more heads, I don't know. That's the one thing I find is very difficult to understand how we do that. But if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. I don't hear anyone else with any issues with it, so it might be just my problem.
Gary or Susanna, do you have thoughts and comments on this area, this space?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to establish a select committee, that's fine with me. I'm not entirely clear what sort of help the members of the select committee could provide me with at this time. We're actively pursuing the options. Whatever we do on any of these items now, the CVRD has to be, they have to be part of the picture. Maybe not doing the work, but they need to be aware and involved. And they have not been able to, they have not come up with any ideas that we haven't ordinarily thought about. When we got quotes last year, they were quite problematic in terms of the budget and the options and comparing apples and oranges. We're going to pursue those options. We're going to look at the options. I definitely we don't have the resources at the staff level. I need some professional procurement advice from a purchasing agent who knows the market out there, who knows what sources we could potentially tap. If we need to do a request for proposals, who can assist in drafting that. None of us have that expertise. Rather than just phoning up three suppliers and giving a sketch map, and asking for quotes. I suspect that this is going to come down to probably, we'll look at the build from scratch option for sure, but I'm not up to speed right now in terms of what architectural drawings we already have in place that would be able to, we'd be able to go to the tender market at this point in time. But
I think Eve's question really is do you want to hand this over to a trustee to run it for you? Like, do you need some help?
At this point in time, I think what I need to do is to do my job and to have discussions at the staff level, and to come back with the options to a board meeting and get a board approval on whatever that may be. Engage an architect to design a new building, a separate office building, or basically proceed with some designs, some work that Dan has already done, and go to the market again with a quick proposal call on some sort of a modular ATCO trailer type building. I got some good contacts of markets of potential providers who I don't believe we sourced the last time. But I need to do that field work to come back with a recommendation to establish a select committee. I'm not sure how the trustees could help me at this point in time.
Right. So at the higher level question I asked, what I hear you saying is you would like to continue to delineate between the governance function of the board and the operational function of the staff.
Yeah, but you know, if the board wishes to establish a select committee to work with me, then you know, then maybe that might make my job a little easier, and that I would be able to liaise directly with two or three two trustees. But I don't see assigning work to trustees to do. This is all staff kind of research. What are the options? And it's incumbent upon us to come back with a recommendation on a course of action to deal with it. Keep in mind, we just did our strategic priority session in January, and the strategic priorities have just been endorsed by the board in February. So we're moving as fast as we can.
Yeah, this is not criticism. What I hear being said is, how do we help you more? Because we are running on a very short timeline, right? And so what that's challenging is the traditional lines between governance and staff. And what I hear you clearly saying is, I don't want to blur those. And we know you are, a one-man band basically, right? And well, that's, you've got Janice and Dan and Ian, but they all have their functions that they're running on a day-to-day basis as well. So I think that's the essence of this discussion is can we help get through this next 4 months? Eve, are you hearing, am I saying what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just think that I don't see it that way, that in a small, tiny government like this, and I've been on the board before when, everybody pitched in, and we certainly did do a lot of work. It's not that difficult. Like you keep saying, for instance, that we need an architect, but there are many plans you can buy ready-made off the internet for $500. We only need an office with a bathroom. We're not building anything that fancy. I mean, so I don't really think that all ideas can possibly be explored if it's only coming through one person or some paid consultant. That's what I think, us as elected officials who live in our communities can offer. But again, I think we can just end the conversation now. I don't want to drag this on. Okay.
As long as everybody else is okay, I'm with you.
Thanks.
Okay, shall we move on from that? So I had a couple other comments on other items of Gary's report, but we could also do them in the unfinished business section because they were about B parcels and the subdivision bylaw. Gary, should we address them here now and perhaps complete the unfinished business component as well? Or would you rather me wait?
No, you could, yeah, you can do it under unfinished business if you like and move on, because I noticed that Dan is just logged into the meeting.
Okay,
Do it under unfinished business.
okay. So then motion to adopt, receive and adopt the interim administrator's report.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Gary. So I guess we have the deputy administrator's report next.
And, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, Mr. Chairman, I'll just ask Janice to briefly summarize her report and, hit the very high points with the financials that are attached to anything that she feels needs to be brought to the board's attention as a result of the work that she's done on the financials.
So you've all got my report, so I'm not going to reread it. But the one thing that was key is we have secured that travel trailer as an office as long as we need it. So we had a bit of a deadline with that as well, but we don't have that deadline anymore. So they will have an office up there until a permanent one is secured. And I think really it's the financial statements. So these are draft financial statements. They will change after the audit because there will be adjustments that are made. So I don't know. Ian, you've always got good questions. You have any?
I don't have a ton of questions. These are about 2020 and, and I know that as we look at it, we've talked about our budgeting process and we knew that we were underachieving our contributions to reserve funds because of some, revenue budgeting errors that happened last time.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at the comparative, the drafts to actuals, I noticed at the front page it's missing with the revenue.
Right.
How that happened. I printed it, it just probably didn't scan it. So I will have
so the bottom line says we underachieved
Yes.
our revenues or our reserve fund contributions by about $79,000.
correct. And that was mainly due to errors in the revenue side.
Calculation, yeah, which have been corrected in 2021.
Correct.
And so I become more concerned then about how do we start getting up-to-date reporting on how's it going in 2021, right? So here we are in February, so I know you're wrapping up. So, at what point in time will we see an early indication on what's going on in 2021?
So for March, I'll have January done for sure for March's meeting. And I don't like to close off the month end until the 25th of the following month. So you'll have January's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there any way of having any sort of preliminary indication of February, or would it or would it be too speculative?
It would be speculative because there's still invoices, payables coming in. There's still things that, haven't come in yet.
Okay. All right. The only other thing because of some discussion that happened at our last meeting, there's an item that appeared in this report that I'd probably never focused on before, and I'm just trying to find it. It's under the liabilities, and it is listed as, why can I not find it now? There it is, deferred project cost revenue, which is, as my understanding, would be the payment from under the water infrastructure agreement from Upper Island Developments for the increased amount of the amount required to build a plant such that it could handle a second DAF train. And we had a bunch of discussion last meeting about building permits being issued and $400,000 checks being provided by Union Bay Estates. And we wanted to make sure that we were clear that the water infrastructure agreement had been properly handled. So this isn't directed at Janice, it's more information for the board and for the public to say that we went back and validated and verified that the steps that have been required under the water infrastructure agreement to this point in time have indeed been completed by Union Bay Estates, and the answer to that would be yes. And that this $117,000 represents the amount that Coors estimated it cost us to build the plant to prepare for a second DAF train, plus 25%. And it seems to me that Union Bay Estates may have taken the cautious route on this, as opposed to providing us a letter of credit. They just provided us the money. And so that we've actually had that money in our accounts, and it will be credited against future CACs as they come up. So I just wanted to clarify that from our last meeting, that everything seems to be in great shape with respect to where we're supposed to be on the water infrastructure agreement.
And Mr. Chairman, I just might add that we have confirmed the transference of the property for the new fire hall, which was part of that agreement as well.
Right.
That has been transferred.
As confirmed by our lawyers, right? Okay, so that was really it for me on the financial statements. Does anybody else have any questions on them? Okay, so then a motion to receive and adopt the Deputy Administrator's report.
So moved,
Second,
muted.
I'll second it. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Susanna's muted, but we saw her hand.
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to the Public Works Superintendent's report. I skipped over the fire report, but we'll do that as Chief Ham is not in attendance right now.
He said he was going to make best efforts to come on board unless something blew up at his work. So perhaps we just go right to the Public Works Superintendent.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Dan.
Basically for the report, yeah, I'll just kind of touch on some of the highlights, which probably are the water treatment plant. So we had a couple busy months with alarms due to a valve not working properly. The valve was replaced on Monday, and since then we've had absolutely zero alarms. So things are running really good up there. It's going through all its backwashes properly. Before, with the old valve, almost every time it would do a backwash, it would set off alarm. Every time it turned on and off, it would set off an alarm. So hopefully that's all gone for us for that. In the report, I put down every kind of chemical and flow and volume that I could think of that's coming either in or out of the plant. So if you have any questions on those, feel free to ask. The water distribution, yeah, we did a big repair underneath Horn Street on January 20th. It took a while for us to get the tool from Vancouver. They actually had to make the boring tool for us. So that leak took a little longer to fix than our usual, that's for sure. But it's completed. We actually did another one yesterday, but that'll probably be on next report. We put in a new connection on Montrose, and there's also a lot of activity on 4th Street right now. There's currently 4 lots that are being developed, 2 on 4th and 2 on 3rd Street. 3rd Street's going to be a bit of an issue, as our water line does not frontage the 2 lots at the end of the street. So eventually we're going to get a application for water, and we'll be talking with probably our engineer and discussing the best route to supply the 2 lots with water. Langley Lake's been doing really well. We're still quite high on our turbidity, our raw water turbidity coming in. We're a little lower today. We're around about 2.6. which is quite a bit lower than the 4.0 that we had when we got the big rains. But now it's just barely overflowing at about 2 centimeters. We got lots of work to do up there this summer, as every summer, just keeping down the brush on the dam so we can inspect it, and keeping all the ditches clear and the culverts clear. Training certification, I've done a Managing for Success from the University of Sacramento. It's not an online, but they send you all the book and the curriculum, and then you fill out the exams and you send them in. So it's 14 chapters. Rather than sending in each chapter one at a time, I'm just going to do them all and send them in at all. So I haven't got results back yet, but hopefully soon. Safety and water sampling, basically it's been the same for since the start of the year, and everything's looking real good in the distribution system. We're getting good chlorine results at the ends of the lines, and the water's looking really great. No dirty water calls, and things are rolling pretty good this last week anyways. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for anybody.
Any questions for Danny? Thank you, Danny, and thank you.
I
Sir,
just got one question. Do you
Go
think
ahead.
that, Danny, that 3 and 4 NTU is worse than, the average norm, the worst times in winter in the past? Or have they been logging up there close by?
No, there's been no logging up there at all. Typically what happens, it's basically very much the same as what happens every year. We get a big dump of rain, kind of flushes the forest out, the watershed out. 4 is pretty close to what we got to last year and the year before, and especially the years that we went into the boil advisory. It usually takes quite a while, a month or two, to go from 4 to 3, and from 3 to 2, it's a month process or more. So we've already dropped 1.5 turbidity since, say, January, the end of December. So I would say in another month, we'll probably be down to about 2 and then 1.5. So it's basically the same every year.
Okay, thanks.
And I'd just like to follow up on that. So when we did get the big rain, so when the plant was running and we were under 1 NTU, we were averaging our treated water at about 0.03, 0.3035. Right now we're at 0.08. So the NTU raw water's tripled coming in, and basically it's tripled our finished water going out. So there is a direct relation there. So we would have to get some really, really nasty water before we break our quote, or not our quota, but our permit, which is 0.3. So right now we're producing water that's 0.08, and we're allowed to go up to 0.3. So we're still, 4 or 5 times lower than what our permit even allows us for. So the plant's making amazing water,
Great.
even with what's happening in the watershed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Susanna, any questions? Okay. Danny, thank you for your report, and also thank you for, I know you put a lot of work into stabilizing this plant over the last month and a bit with all these alarms and things, so we really appreciate everything you've done.
No problems. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so a motion to receive and adopt the Public Works Superintendent's report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to the fire chief's report. How should we proceed? Is it just we've read it? Chief Ham's not here to ask questions of. Gary, are you aware of anything? Can you handle
No,
questions?
I talked to him yesterday. He said he'd make best efforts to join, but he is working and sometimes things go sideways at his work. But what I'd suggest is we just go to new business, just that one item about the cow meeting, and then go to unfinished. And if he hasn't logged in, then we can return to his report at the end.
Okay, that's what we will do then. So let's move to new business and the cancellation, proposed cancellation of the cow meeting next week.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't foresee, I mean, it's next week. I'd literally have to put the agenda out this weekend to get it to you on Monday. At this stage, I'm not going to have any new late breaking items or solutions or recommendations. Unless there's items that the board feels that they wish to discuss, I would suggest that we cancel the next cow meeting. The next board meeting would be in 3 weeks on the 18th of March. I can foresee a fairly lengthy agenda with items coming back on the subdivision bylaw and railway crossing notices and the washroom at the water treatment plant and financials, and probably stuff on records retention and destruction. There's going to be a report on turnout gear at the fire department. So what I'm recommending is that unless members of the board wish to proceed with a cow meeting and have some agenda items they want to discuss, that we move forward to the next meeting regularly scheduled for March 18th.
Okay, so I guess what we're really doing is proposing a motion to cancel the cow meeting of next Thursday.
So moved.
The cow
Okay.
meeting is the 9th. It's not next Thursday, but yeah, I'm fine with it.
Is it
No,
the 9th?
it's the 4th. It's the 4th.
We
Yes,
moved
it
to
So
should.
it's the
9th.
first. It's
It'll be
the,
the first Thursday.
Yeah, but last time Gary wanted to postpone it because of what was going on, so we moved it to the 9th. But I'm fine with canceling it. I'm just saying that it's not the 4th, it's the 9th, but whatever. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, it's out of there now.
Okay, let's just say the motion is to cancel March's cow meeting.
Got it.
So
second.
that's been moved, seconded.
I just second.
Okay, any discussion, any other thoughts?
No.
Eve, you said you're fine. I'm fine
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So shall we just vote? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let's move on to unfinished business. And I'll turn it back to Gary as if there's any items that haven't been addressed in your report that you'd like to address under this section.
No, Mr. Chairman. No, I think I've covered off everything in these 2 sections on conversion and strategic priorities that I need to at this point in time. You mentioned you had a couple of items, that you wish to raise.
Yeah, they're just comments on 2 of the items in the strategic planning area, right? B parcels. So now that we know that there are a significant number of B parcels, and the number that has been reported is 108. What we don't know yet is how many of those B parcels are affronted by an existing water main. I'm presuming, and perhaps our Dan could help us with this, I'm presuming that a significant portion of those lots are already affronted by a main. So maybe I'll just pause and ask Dan if he believes that that's true, or if they're way away from our existing infrastructure.
Right off, my first feeling would be it's opposite, that there's probably the majority that are not frontage by the water lines.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like pretty much most of the places I go and that you can get to by a road have a water line down them. So
But how many of those B parcels exist on those roads with water lines?
yeah, I mean, like say take Country Air Estates, for example, there's only about 4, well, Eve would know more than I would, but they've all paid their CECs already. So there's a lot of empty lots that are that have probably already been paid the CECs.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's probably more on the side of the lot has no water in front of it. More
Okay.
parcels like that.
Okay, I will probably just, I'll make my comment very briefly then, because it was dependent on my assumption. And thank you for sharing what your thoughts are on this. And that is, if indeed B parcels are going to raise significant revenues, I think there's a discussion or some thought required by the board as to saying, what will we use those funds for? That there need to be some debate and decision around that as to whether that would flow towards reducing overall parcel taxes for all lots, whether that would be, applied towards a faster pay down of debt, whether that would be towards increasing capital reserves for the water system. So I don't think we have to debate or discuss that now. I just wanted to make that point that says we have to have that on our agenda to say, so great, we're going to do B parcel taxes. What are we doing with it?
I think, aren't we limited with our parcel taxes that they go for capital, that there's specific things that they're meant to go for? And so
They
I
are.
would say that's where they have to go for.
But we could also just reduce parcel taxes as well, right? So we've got some decisions to make on what's the legislative or the directional approach we want to take if we are to implement parcel taxes for B parcels. So just raising that for thought.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question? Janice, can you just provide a little bit of clarity on what the next step would be now that we've at least got a list of 108?
Yeah,
parcels?
we
What's
have a
the next
list,
step?
account numbers and names. And now Lindsay has to complete the Excel spreadsheet to put in addresses. And then we get that to Danny, and then he decides, he'll mark on it which are near water lines.
Yeah, and the basic rule of law is that if a parcel is deemed to be capable of connection and can benefit from, is deemed to benefit from the fact that there's a water line, adjacent or in close proximity and capable of connection, they ostensibly are subject, or they should be subject to taxation. That's the basic rule of law.
Can I ask a question to whoever? Just for example, the two lots on 3rd Street, the water line does not reach their lots. It's only 60 feet away. Who would pay for that extension of the water line? So if you're going to charge them to be a parcel, I guess, that is able to connect to the system, would we not have to provide that water service?
I'm not capable or qualified to answer that. Gary, do you have a thought on, like, if it was a development, we would ask the developer to provide the infrastructure?
Right. So this is an existing street. There's already 4 houses, I believe, on the street, on the one side of the street where the new parcels are. It just ends before the last 2 lots were ever developed. For some reason, it's a very odd circumstance.
Is there a dwelling on these 2?
Not on the last 2 lots. No dwellings. It's always just been an empty lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to shoot from the hip. Generally speaking, I would say that in a lot of instances, the property owner would be responsible for paying the cost of that 60-foot extension.
Right.
But this is where there's a legal component here that once we get those, okay, so there's 108 parcels. Now we've whittled it down to say 60, just throwing out a number, that are capable of connection or deemed to be benefiting as a result of the proximity of a main.
Right.
You'd want to have a chat with the lawyer about, in your view, if there was a lot of pushback and we were challenged, is there a defense to the fact that we are now charging them a parcel charge?
Yeah, I think,
Generally,
I think Dan's question is a little different, right? Which is, okay, so these two lots are now being developed and there is no water service to the property line. Who pays for putting the water service to the property line? Union Bay or the property owner?
as I said, I think it would be, again, it would depend on the circumstances, but if there's a main in a reasonably close proximity and there's got to be a 60-foot extension or something, ordinarily it would be paid for by the property owner.
Okay, so I guess we're turning that over to you to confirm that for Dan.
Would they have paid their CECs though? When did they pay them? Isn't that what it's for? So that we can get the water there?
that's kind of my point, Eve, exactly that. When we hook up water to a new house, the main is already out in front. So they're just paying for the 3/4 inch line to come from the 8-inch main. They're not paying for an 8-inch main to be installed. The other part of this problem is there's two lots at the end of the road. What if the lot at the end of the road wants the water and the guy before it doesn't? Who pays for that?
Well, once again, this is a complex file.
It is.
It's a very complex file, and you have to do the necessary steps to get to a point where you can identify, let's throw out a number, 60 parcels that potentially could be put on the parcel tax roll. And you'd have to do your research in terms of where's the line, how close is it to the parcel, have they paid CECs? And then you have to have a discussion and get some legal advice on whether it's legitimate to put them on the, to now start charging them, because you're going to get some pushback. And you have to.
I think we're confusing this. Like, this isn't about the overall B parcel things. This is about two lots that don't have a main. Right?
Well, we aren't sort of, Ian. I think we're going to find a lot of places like this that the lot is literally only, maybe 100 feet away from a potential water main, not just a service, but a water main. We have a lot of those. And that's why I say I think there's more properties that don't have the water main out in front of them than properties that do, that just haven't paid.
So we're gonna face this problem of one or two lots many times.
Yes, very much so. I have probably 20, 30 in my head already.
Yep, and we're going to have to know what the history is. Have they paid CECs? Let's have a look at the map. Where's the line? Where's the property? And we're going to have to get some advice before we put it on the tax roll.
Yeah, okay. So that was my thought on B parcels, and then Dan brought up a very specific example of a couple.
Yeah.
The other one for me was subdivision bylaw, and I've been thinking about, where are we at with this, and that we've had this subdivision bylaw drafted, approved by the board, submitted for registration or with the inspector, and it has never been registered. And then we got legal advice back suggesting some changes to that. And, we've been talking about, do we need to put this back on our agenda and get our new bylaw approved? And my thinking on this has been, so because we do not have a new bylaw, we have an old bylaw. And I just went back and reread that old bylaw, and while it probably needs to be updated, it provides Union Bay with a certain set of protections and developers with a certain set of guidelines and requirements in order to connect to our water system. The current developments that we know of would not be relying on the new bylaw, they would be relying on the old bylaw. And thus, anything that is happening to Union Bay in the next few months, unless some other development comes out of the woodwork, would be based on our old bylaw anyways. And so that says, is there an important need for us to update our bylaw, or can we exist with our current bylaw until conversion, presuming that the CVRD bylaw is adequate for us already? And my understanding from talking with Gary, and I think your update last time, Gary, was that CVRD said that if we were to pass a new bylaw, it might be problematic for them. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I indicated in my report that they are reviewing that bylaw as we speak in terms of what's in it. They have advised me that they have on their work plan the intention to develop and I don't know where this is in the process, but I don't think it's that far along, to develop a subdivision bylaw for the CVRD that would be applicable to, and maybe somewhat little different for each of the electoral areas. So the questions they have is, what's in this bylaw? What force and effect may it have? If we were to update it and put it in place, what force and effect may it have after conversion? Does that make sense to do that? Should they take elements of Union Bay's bylaw and put it into their proposed subdivision bylaw? So they're reviewing that now. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but and I wish I could have quick and easy and dirty, quick and easy solutions to some of these things. But this, once again, is a complex file with some complex history. And there's some answers to questions that even the ministry and CVRD don't know at this point in time. So again, what I would anticipate coming back with is a report saying, okay, here's some options in terms of moving forward. One of those options may be to spend the money to revise our bylaw and to give it the necessary readings, send it off to the province, hopefully get the approval of the inspector before conversion, and then it's in effect, right, before conversion. But then what happens after conversion? I don't know the answer to that. But this is one at this time, but this is one item that even the CVRD is trying to get their heads around CVRD. Where does this bylaw sit in the grand scheme of things, and what should we do with it?
So I think the new news to me in this today is I'm hearing that CVRD does not, in fact, have a subdivision bylaw at present.
Yeah, what James Warren has said to me is that it is they have an item in their work plan to develop I don't know whether that's a new subdivision bylaw, a reworked subdivision bylaw, but they're looking at, the merits of us doing what maybe we should be doing or we would want to do. Does that make sense given where they're going and the fact that there isn't going to be a Union Bay in 4 months?
All right. Yes. So I think where I'm at with my thoughts on this one is carry on. Like I think my impression would be if CVRD had an effective subdivision bylaw now, I would wonder about the merits of doing any work on this, based on the fact that we have a subdivision bylaw that existing subdivisions would be relying on. And if we were to bring in a new bylaw, it wouldn't change anything for those existing developments.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
if we do not have an effective subdivision bylaw, then I think we should just carry on with the work.
Oh, I've got a question.
Fire away, Eve.
Yeah. From what Susanna has said in in board meetings, that sorry. Susanna, are you talking? Oh, sorry. Anyway, I thought that, I think I understood from what Susanna had said when I first got on the board, and I seem to recall this from way back when, that we already, an old board already did revise and approve our Union Bay bylaw or subdivision bylaw. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then after, I think some correspondence that maybe Mary may have, I kind of went through it. It would look to me like either the CVRD and or the province, they didn't want to approve it. they stalled, they had issues, or somebody had issues, and it didn't. We've done all the work, is what my point is. Somebody else did the work. It was approved, and then it was stalled. And now I think I heard Gary say they're looking at the bylaw. I mean, how many years does it take to look at the bylaw? And effectively, we could simply look at the bylaw again that they created and say, this is what we want, approve it and put it in their hands. And then if they don't or they do, we've done our work.
So first, let
The
me,
one piece that's missing there is that when the bylaw came back from the provincial government, it went through further legal review and it would require further amendment in order to incorporate that legal review.
so let me, first of all, it had nothing to do with CBRD. This is between Union Bay and the provincial government. CBRD has no part in this.
Well, they
The
were.
subdivision was approved and passed and read 3 times by Carol Mostat's board. Then it sat in the ministry for months and months and months. In the meantime, that board resigned. There was a new election. Basically, the ministry just just basically said, you have a new board. This is what I find highly problematic. The assumption was made that because we have a new board, it then had to be put before the board, a new board.
Yeah.
That's where I have a strong disagreement with, that should never have been made to happen because it had been passed by the board. It was stalled at the provincial level. Nevertheless, that's what it did. And a second legal opinion, the one that has been circulated to all of us, was circulated to that board, who did not even look at the merits of the legal opinion. They simply dropped it like a hot potato.
Yes.
So a lot of work, you're right, Eve, a lot of work, hard work, committee work by the landowners was completely wasted.
Yeah, so the province basically they squashed it with whatever little ways they have. So now,
Well, no,
what are we gonna do about it?
No. Here's the dilemma. The details in the legal opinion basically essentially say that
The developer doesn't like it.
no. And it doesn't matter what the developer does or doesn't like. We have the right to have subdivision bylaws, but some of the factors in it are beyond the jurisdiction of an improvement district. They fall more in the hands of a municipality. That was the dilemma, is that as an improvement district, we don't have the legal wherewithal to put it in it might need some tweaking. That's where the tweaking would have to come in to make it fly as an improvement district. In my mind, that is a moot point because we are about to be converted. So that issue that we don't have, because we're about to become a regional district, which has more power. So it is this ridiculous, if I sound frustrated, I am frustrated by this sort of non-issue that is stalling what could be a very timely, like it was a very comprehensive and very specific to the needs, the lighting, very specific to a large development like we have. And Ian, I do not understand what you mean when you say that Union Bay Estates, for example, would be building their subdivision based on our old subdivision law, like our subdivision. It's a three.
I only mean the current applications.
Yeah, which is basically a sales center. So
No, that's not true. There's 43 lots in those 2 subdivision requests, right?
But are those lots for residential residents or
Yeah, there's
cottages?
5 fee simple lots and 38 Fairland strata lots in those 2 subdivision requests.
So, okay. But it's not representing a 3,000 home house build out.
No,
And that's my
I'm
fear.
speaking only of those 2, Susanna.
Yeah, okay. but of course, you understand the dilemma we have. We have a very well-researched, comprehensive
Sorry.
subdivision bylaw that's already been done with a legal opinion that, yes, requires tweaking, and I tend to think we should proceed with that. So that I want Union Bay to be protected. We've heard Danny tell about a poorly built subdivision that I happen to live in. We don't want to have another one built like that. I think we're all in agreement about that. So I'm surprised. You see, my understanding, forgive me for rambling, was that Union Bay Improvement District based a lot of this new subdivision bylaw on what the regional district had. So I'm very confused to find out that they don't have a subdivision bylaw. That's a complete
I don't
surprise
think
to me.
Gary's saying that, right? I asked Gary that question, and he said, I don't know where they're at. They may indeed have one, and that they're considering a replacement one. But I'd like to, I think perhaps we just let Gary again go do his work and
Yeah.
research and bring it back to us as to what the right approach is. But
Yeah.
just if they do have an effective subdivision bylaw, and indeed we can't create the one we want because we're an improvement district, it may be best just to wait. So that's what my point really is.
Mr. Chairman, this is an item which I think should be raised at the next working group meeting. Definitely have a discussion about it. Basically, it is of course an option, but I'd need political direction from you folks to instruct the solicitor to amend that bylaw, redraft it, tweak it, whatever you want to call it, and bring it back for readings and send it to the inspector before conversion. That is an option. That's not, I'm not saying that's not what the CVRD, they don't want us to do that. They just want to take some time to do an evaluation of the best options moving forward. But that's an option for us. But I would suggest that this needs to be talked maybe at the political level further with the CVRD. The basic essence of the matter is that bylaw that was passed in 2016 has never received the approval of the inspector, so has no force and effect right now.
Yes. Agreed. Just to note that CVRD meeting will be after our March board meeting. It was rescheduled from the 16th to the 23rd. And our March board meeting is on the 18th. Not that that makes any difference, but we won't be able to have that conversation with that working group until the 22nd. Sorry, 22nd. No, sorry, 23rd. Yeah.
And that was it for me in terms of items on the unfinished business. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or things about the conversion process or about our strategic planning items?
Did anybody else have the impression, I guess I'm speaking to Gary and Ian, from the ministry being somewhat, it seemed, taken aback by the fact that we were making decisions? And she said a comment like, oh, maybe I have to, it had to do with the fact that we were going down to 3 trustees in April at the AGM. I was very confused by Ian or Gary. Do you recall what I'm talking about? She sort of said, oh, well, she seemed surprised that we were undertaking work, like maybe it was the subdivision bylaw, and somehow because we were going down as a number of trustees, that seemed problematic. Am I completely off base?
I don't remember any of that, but that doesn't mean you didn't hear it.
I did share. I've shared with Catherine from the ministry our strategic priorities spreadsheet. She thanked me for that. I think there was a little bit of an element of surprise that, you're actually being fairly aggressive, not in a negative way, but being aggressive in wanting to
Do stuff?
get a couple of things done before conversion. She didn't push back. She didn't say, no, don't do it. Maybe she's more experienced with conversions where essentially they're smaller, and once the referendum happens, they're basically just working on the conversion process and not doing anything else. She was just a little bit surprised at how aggressive and ambitious we were wanting to be to deal with some of these issues.
Okay,
Not in a
I
negative,
just found it odd because I'm like,
not in
aren't
a
we
negative.
supposed to be working? Like, you know, a 5-year strategic plan is something we should have done year one, 5 years ago.
No, she wasn't negative about it.
Okay,
So that is the end of our agenda. As always, I'd like to open up a question period for any members of the public, which I think we only have one. Mary is on the call, I believe, to see if there's any questions and see if we can answer them.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. But thank you. I always find your meetings, they're so informative now. Now I know why you do what you do. I understand the reasoning, and it makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, so I guess that leaves us at motion to adjourn.
so moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody's attendance and support.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thanks,
Take care.
Gary. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.